Sunday, April 29, 1945, just 1 week before the war in Europe came to an end. The U.S. 7th Army's 45th Infantry Division liberated Dachau, the first concentration camp established by the Nazi regime. What the soldiers encountered was beyond imagination. The stench of human waste and rotting flesh filled the air, causing many to vomit or break down in tears. They found heaps of emaciated corpses, more than 30 railway cars packed with thousands of dead bodies, and around 30,000 survivors, most of them skeletal and barely alive. Many of these survivors, ravaged by typhus and starvation, would die in the following months despite being freed. Among those responsible for such horrors was Wilhelm Ruppert. Friedrich Wilhelm Ruppert was born on February 2, 1905, in Frankenthal, then part of the German Empire. He was married, had one child, and worked as an electrical engineer. But his life took a dark turn with Hitler's rise to power. On January 30, 1933, Adolf Hitler was appointed Chancellor of Germany by President Paul von Hindenburg. The Nazi Party's ascent was fueled by the devastation of the Great Depression, which left millions unemployed, impoverished, and desperate. This climate of fear and anger made Germans more susceptible to radical ideologies from both extremes. Ruppert was one of those drawn to the Nazis, joining both the party and the SS in 1933. Once Hitler consolidated power, Germany rapidly became a dictatorship. The Nazi regime stripped Jews of their civil and human rights and began establishing concentration camps to imprison political opponents, homosexuals, Jehovah's Witnesses, and others labeled as enemies of the state. These camps operated outside any legal oversight. Unlike prisons, they had no judicial review. Dachau, the first such camp, opened in March 1933, less than 2 months after Hitler's appointment. Starting April 11th of that year, Wilhelm Ruppert became one of its earliest guards, initially serving as a camp electrician. At the time, Dachau held about 5,000 prisoners, mostly communists, social democrats, trade unionists, and others opposed to the Nazi government. Over time, its population grew to include Jehovah's Witnesses, Roma and Sinti, homosexuals, repeat offenders, and so-called asocials, people the regime deemed unwilling or unable to work. Jews were not yet imprisoned in large numbers at Dachau, except those convicted under the Nuremberg Laws of 1935, which codified Nazi racial ideology. By 1937, the SS forced prisoners to build a massive new camp complex, demolishing the old munitions factory on the site under brutal conditions. The construction was completed in mid-August 1938. World War II began on September 1, 1939, with Germany's invasion of Poland. In September 1942, Ruppert was transferred to Majdanek concentration camp in Lublin, where he became the camp's technical director. Majdanek was constantly under expansion and also functioned as a storage facility for clothing and valuables stolen from Jews before their deaths at the extermination centers of Belzec, Sobibor, and Treblinka. During the winter of 1941 to 1942, camp authorities began experimenting with Zyklon B gas to kill prisoners too weak to work, using makeshift gas chambers. By October 1942, mass gassings became a regular method of extermination. At least 3 gas chambers were built at Majdanek, 2 of them converted shower rooms, where tens of thousands of Jews perished. Most arrived as forced laborers and either died from starvation, disease, and brutal conditions, or were killed once they were deemed unfit to work. In November 1943, Ruppert witnessed Operation Harvest Festival, the largest single massacre of Jews during the Holocaust. Over 2 days, nearly every remaining Jew in the Lublin district of occupied Poland was executed. This mass killing was carried out in response to a wave of Jewish resistance in 1943, including the uprisings in the Warsaw and Białystok ghettos. On August 2, 1943, Jewish prisoners rose up at the Treblinka Killing Center, while on October 14 of the same year, an uprising at Sobibor enabled more than 300 prisoners to escape, 58 of whom survived the war. In the aftermath of these revolts, the Operation Reinhard killing centers were liquidated in the autumn of 1943. Fearing further resistance within the general government, the administrative territory of Nazi-occupied Poland, SS Chief Heinrich Himmler ordered the extermination of the remaining 45,000 Jewish forced laborers in the Lublin district. Most of these victims were held at the Troniki, Poniatowa, and Majdanek camps. At dawn on November 3, 1943, Operation Harvest Festival began. SS and police units surrounded the camps, removing Jews in groups and executing them in mass graves prepared in advance. At Majdanek, Jews were separated from other prisoners, marched to nearby trenches, and shot. Prisoners from smaller labor camps across the Lublin area were also transferred to Majdanek to be killed. To mask the horror, music was blasted through loudspeakers at both Majdanek and Troniki to drown out the gunfire and screams. The massacres at Majdanek and Troniki were completed in a single day, while the killings at Poniatowa extended into November 4th. In total, approximately 42,000 Jews were murdered during Operation Harvest Festival, the single largest German-perpetrated massacre of the Holocaust. By May 1944, Wilhelm Ruppert was serving as a warehouse manager at the Warsaw concentration camp, located in the ruins of the former ghetto. Initially functioning as an independent camp, it was reclassified as a subcamp of Majdanek that same month. On August 6, 1944, Ruppert returned to Dachau, serving under Commandant Eduard Weider and overseeing camp operations until April 23, 1945, when Max Schabert replaced him. Ruppert was also directly involved in the murder of Noor Inayat Khan, a British SOE agent captured by the Gestapo. Noor, operating under the codename Madeline, had been sent to Nazi-occupied Paris in 1943 as the first female radio operator deployed by the SOE. Despite constant danger, she transmitted vital intelligence to London until she was betrayed and arrested in October 1943. After enduring brutal torture, she revealed nothing. In September 1944, Noor was sent to Dachau, where Ruppert oversaw her execution. The night before her death, she was beaten and kicked until she collapsed. Ruppert then ordered her to kneel and shot her point blank in the back of the head. In the final days of the war, Ruppert joined the death march from Dachau into the Bavarian Alps. On April 27, 1945, around 7,000 prisoners, most of them Jews, were forced to march from Dachau to Tegernsee. Anyone unable to continue was executed on the spot, while others perished from exhaustion, starvation, or exposure. U.S. forces liberated Dachau on April 29 and freed the survivors of the death march in early May. Ruppert himself was captured in Tegernsee and held in American custody. After Germany's surrender on May 8, 1945, Ruppert was brought to trial during the Dachau camp proceedings, the first of the U.S. Army's Dachau trials, held on the grounds of the camp itself. Between November 15 and December 13, 1945, 40 defendants were tried for war crimes connected to Dachau and its subcamps. All 40 were convicted, with 36 sentenced to death and 28 executions carried out. Testimony against Ruppert was damning. Witnesses described how he personally selected prisoners for execution, frequently whipped inmates, and showed no trace of compassion. Evidence revealed that he oversaw the execution of at least 90 Soviet prisoners, who were marched to the crematorium, shot in the neck, and stripped of their gold teeth. Witnesses also testified that in August 1944, Ruppert ordered Jewish prisoners from Warsaw, some still alive, to be sent directly to the crematorium. Despite his denials, the tribunal found him guilty of prisoner mistreatment and participation in executions. On December 13, 1945, Wilhelm Ruppert was sentenced to death by hanging. The sentence was carried out on May 28, 1946, when he was 41 years old. Thanks for watching the Front of History channel. Be sure to like and subscribe, and click the bell notification icon so you don't miss our next episodes. We thank you, and we'll see you next time on the channel.